When Operation Epic Fury launched, the shockwave was supposed to signal the end. American surgical strikes tore through Iranian military compounds, taking out air defenses, missile stockpiles, and top commanders. In Washington, it looked like the regime was finally collapsing. A month later, the dust has settled, and the narrative has flipped. The core leadership survived. Instead of facing a revolution in the streets, Tehran is dictating terms, forcing the U.S. to negotiate whether a ceasefire even happens. America measures victory through a very specific conventional lens. You bomb the nuclear sites, you eliminate the generals, you degrade the enemy's military assets. By those metrics, the U.S. assumes it has already won. Iran is playing a completely different game. They don't need to march into Washington to declare victory. For Tehran, winning simply means their command and control structure stays alive, because as long as they exist, they keep their finger on the trigger. They hold their ballistic missile stockpiles in reserve and maintain the ability to choke off the Strait of Hormuz at will, taking the global economy hostage. Survival itself has become a strategic asset. By maintaining their leadership and their ability to disrupt the global economy, Iran has forced a pivot from a quick victory to a long-term conflict that Washington wasn't prepared for. When air power fails to force a surrender, the options in Washington begin to narrow. To achieve the total regime change they promised, the conversation shifts towards the most high-risk escalation possible, putting boots on the ground. This map shows a direct geographic comparison. Notice the scale. Iran is an aggressively hostile landmass 4 times the size of Iraq, holding a population of 80 million people. The Zagros and Alborz mountain ranges cover half the country, a natural fortress. Invading forces are forced into narrow bottlenecks, turning valleys into kill zones. Geography alone guarantees a disaster. A ground campaign here would swallow American troops, neutralizing U.S. technological supremacy and leading to a casualty rate far beyond the wars in Iraq or Afghanistan. This diagram shows Iran's mosaic doctrine. If the central hub in Tehran is wiped out, regional commanders instantly operate independently. There is no central surrender. Local guerrilla networks will launch an endless asymmetric war without ever needing a single order from the top. To sustain an operation that grueling, the U.S. military requires a massive, unbroken supply line. They would need robust staging grounds and safe havens in neighboring allied countries like the UAE or Bahrain. Tehran anticipated this. They issued an explicit ultimatum. Any neighboring country that allows the U.S. to use its territory for a ground invasion will be immediately targeted, invaded, and occupied by Iranian forces. America is cornered by its own logistics. The U.S. military is built to dominate conventional battlefields, but it cannot sustain a massive, decentralized guerrilla war without secure regional supply lines. Now look at the immediate aftermath. A battered, heavily damaged, yet surviving Iranian state holds tight to its crucial energy infrastructure, like the Karg Island oil terminal, keeping global markets in a chokehold. The first domino falls right next door. Fearing Iranian retaliation, Gulf nations quickly realize the U.S. military cannot guarantee their safety. They start looking for an exit strategy. This visual maps out the global oil trade. Notice the shift in currency flow. As confidence drops, Gulf states move away from the petrodollar, the system where global oil is exclusively traded in U.S. currency, and begin selling their oil in Chinese yuan to secure new alliances. With their financial loyalty shifted, the physical military presence follows. Middle Eastern allies slowly restrict and expel U.S. military bases from their soil, turning to Beijing and Moscow for new security guarantees. At the same time, the global non-proliferation regime crumbles. Knowing the U.S. failed to topple the regime, a surviving Iran accelerates its nuclear program on double speed. Almost instantly, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Egypt launch their own nuclear programs to match the threat. A military stalemate shatters Washington's financial and military grip on the Middle East, tearing up decades of established global order. The fallout radiates outward. Across the region, Iran's deeply entrenched proxy networks, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, and the Houthis in Yemen, are emboldened by America's failure to finish the job, guaranteeing continuous, indefinite strikes on U.S. and Israeli assets. And while the U.S. bleeds resources in the desert, Beijing is taking detailed notes. They see American carrier groups stretch to their breaking point, creating a massive power vacuum in the Indo-Pacific, right when Taiwan is most vulnerable. Back home, the cost of the conflict becomes suffocating. As American casualties mount alongside skyrocketing fuel costs, domestic backlash reaches a boiling point. The political pressure forces the White House into a humiliating, mandated military withdrawal. Historians often call Afghanistan the graveyard of empires. The British, the Soviets, and the Americans all tried to tame it, and all eventually left. But this conflict represents a far more lethal trap. Iran does not need to defeat the American military to end the American empire. By simply absorbing the blow and surviving, Tehran finally shatters the illusion of U.S. invincibility, dragging the entire world headfirst into a chaotic, multipolar future.